Okay, we're ready for our next session. They took away the title again. Guys, give me the title back. The potential of bergamot polyphenolic fraction supplementation and multi-organ impairment associated with metabolic syndrome. Thank you. I'm Heather Granato. I'm the head of content at Vita Foods, and I'm thrilled that you are here with us in Geneva and you are here with us online. So thank you to all of our visitors. If you have a cell phone, if you could put that in silent or vibrate mode, please, if you're here in the audience. We will have the presentations available in the online platform after the event, so please do tune in and check that out. Our speaker today, Vincenzo Malace. Did that okay? Excellent. He's like, it's okay. Professor of pharmacology at the University of Magna Graecia in Italy and scientific director at Herbal and Antioxidant Derivatives. And I'm going to turn things over to you, Professor Malace.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Today, we will discuss about Bergamot Extract, which is relatively new in the nutraceutical supplementation, and it has been recently checked in both preclinical and clinical studies. Here, we will discuss about a specific activity of one extract rich in polyphenols from bergamot, which is the BPF, or bergamot polyphenolic fraction, which has been shown to possess significant activities in counteracting not only the metabolic alterations which are accompanying metabolic syndrome, but also the multi-organ dysfunction, which is one of the major determinants in the cardiometabolic risk which is associated to metabolic syndrome. And just a few introductory slides in which to identify which is the general assessment of the problem of metabolic syndrome. In 1 of 3 deaths in USA, but it is also in Europe, we have that 1 of 3 that are associated to the occurrence of cardiovascular disease. And you can see here that one consistent part is also under 65, but the major cardiovascular events occur after this age. And you can see also that there is an age-dependent increase in the series of events which are associated to the plaque rupture, which is the final common pathway in which all the vascular disease lead to myocardial infarction and stroke. So the metabolic syndrome is one of major determinants in terms of risk of the occurrence of cardiovascular events in any stage, but especially in elderly. And you can see here, just to summarize, that the metabolic syndrome is the combination of the abdominal obesity plus at least 2 of the other components, which are elevated blood pressure, hyperglycemia, and defective control of the glycemic metabolism, increased LDL cholesterol, and elevated triglycerides. So in general, the occurrence of at least 3 of these components is considered the metabolic syndrome, which may generate vascular damage. And the reason why there is a synergistic response when all or at least 3 of these components may contribute in producing an imbalance in metabolism is related to the tendency of clustering of these risk factors, which is a concept quite different compared to the previous one, in which each of the risk factor was considered separately. Today we are, and all the major authorities which are handling this problem, and the European Society of Cardiology and the American Heart Association tend to evaluate a therapeutic approach which is a systematic and is a strategic activity in which all those components are considered together. Well, this also is crucial when we evaluate which are the target of our therapeutic intervention. Normally, you can see that today a level of 70 milligrams per ml of LDL cholesterol is considered the most successful response we can expect after treatment with drugs. And as you can see, this effect may be obtained only when very powerful drugs such as statins are used. And you can see that the reduction up to the 5% of the LDL cholesterol may be obtained only with two statins, which are atorvastatin and rosuvastatin. This effect is, however, accompanied by the increase in side effects. So statins in a very large amount of population produces damage in muscles and produces muscle pain. And in more than the 20% of subjects, the treatment have to be withdrawn based on the occurrence of these side effects. So in the last few years, we and other groups tried to verify whether or not food supplementation with nutraceutical compounds, and you can see many of them which have been studied in the last 20 or 30 years, to verify whether or not we may produce an effect in subjects in which statins are unable to work due to the occurrence of side effects. However, the major limitation for the use of many of the food supplements in combating metabolic disorders is represented by the very weak response you can expect after treatment, no more than 10 to 20% of the response. You have poor scientific evidence for the efficacy and for especially for the safety profile. And in general, some more studies are required. So in this context, we evaluated in the last 15 years the potential for polyphenols which may be obtained by a very peculiar fruit, which is the bergamot fruit, which is characterized by, this is the area in which bergamot trees can be found with the due properties, able to produce the due amount of active ingredients, which is exactly in the south of Italy. And this is a fruit which was used traditionally, especially for the aromatic properties, and the essential oil is one of the major components of the most prestigious perfumes you can find all around the world. However, the whole fruit produces also nutraceuticals effect. This is my favorite, obviously. You can see that these fruit combinations which are rich in bergamot, and also beverages. And in the south of Italy, we have that still bergamot is collected with manually. And the whole family is usually involved in the collection of the fruit, but then the fruit is filtered, compressed, washed, and at the end we obtained, this is the whole process for generating the extract, and at the end of the process we obtain the BPF, which is the bergamot polyphenolic fraction. Well, the characteristic is that today this product is very well characterized from the phytochemical point of view. So we are able to identify, we identified and published in prestigious journals, which is the composition in terms of active ingredients of this product. We characterized the mechanism of action, and we verified, and this is really important when talking about nutraceuticals, the efficacy and the safety profile of this product. And We have also, you can visit and evaluate directly more than 50 papers in this area with an impact factor generally of more than 5.2, which is for nutraceuticals a very good target for the publications. This is the phytochemical properties which have been identified in a recent paper published in Antioxidants, in which you can see that the concentration of flavonoids is very high compared to all the other citrus species, and we have very well characterized flavonoids, which are traditional one, neringin, neosperidin, and neurioticin, but also we have also identified a series of other components which are able to produce a relevant effect both in metabolic modulation done in anti-inflammatory antioxidant properties, and especially it has been identified that there is a few glycosylated polyphenols which are powerful inhibitors of the hydroxymethyl glutaryl CoA reductase, which is the key enzyme able to generate cholesterol from endogenously. So all those characteristics lead to the studies which have been carried out in order to verify whether or not this product may produce a beneficial effect in protecting the heart and the vasculature, and especially in subjects with metabolic syndrome. And at the end, we will identify that also in aging and in muscle protection, those effects are accompanying the beneficial response we have found in metabolic disorders. And this is the first observation in which we studied the potential mechanism of action of BPF. You can see that these blood vessels which after injury are brown, and we have an increase in intimal formation, and this effect, which is the effect which leads to restenosis and which vascular occlusion after injury is blocked by BPF. And this effect is related to the antioxidant properties of this product. Since if you look at the staining of the footprint of free radical formation, which is nitrotyrosine, this is completely removed after treatment with BPF, thus suggesting that antioxidant properties of this product are relevant in the occurrence of the vasoprotective effect. Well, the other response we have seen is a global activity in both lipids and glucose control. This has been assessed both in preclinical studies and in human studies. This has been published in Phytotherapy, in which we found that LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, triglyceride, and blood glucose are positively modulated in both patients suffering from metabolic syndrome and in animal models of hyperglycemia. And this effect is accompanied by a reduction of atherogenic index, thus suggesting that both patients and rats which are taking Bergamot Extract, and especially BPF, have a reduced risk to undergo vascular complication and atherosclerosis. And also we have found that bergamot polyphenolic fraction produces a synergistic response when combined with the golden standard of statin, thus suggesting that we may reduce the aliquot of statin which may be used in patients in order to get the target of vascular protection with less side effect and with a reduction in side effect which is produced normally by the use of statins. And these are also the data which have been published in International Journal of Cardiology in a study which was carried out in patients suffering from metabolic syndrome. And this effect is also accompanied by vascular protection and protection of the endothelial dysfunction, which is associated to the occurrence of metabolic syndrome. And here this is represented by the expression of phospho-PKB, and especially by the reduced expression of the LOX1 receptor, which is the one which binds under normal condition pro-oxidative LDL, which are the one which are generating the atherosclerosis. So in general, we have a vasoprotection, and the placement in therapy we can verify today is in a way similar to the one of statins, but with the potential for further potentiation of the activity of usual anti-lipidemic drugs. The other aspect is that the protective activity of BPF is really widespread and has been investigated, as you can see here, in a series of models, both in vitro and in vivo in animal studies and in patients. These cartoon summarizes which have been the studies which have been carried out with the product in order to better assess the principal mechanism of action. But we believe that antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties are the one which merit to be taken into account when considering the potential profile of supplementation with BPF in patients. And as you know, the metabolic syndrome is accompanied by an imbalance in between oxidative process and reduction, and metabolic syndrome leads and moves in the direction of oxidation, especially for many of the substrates which are crucial in the development of atherosclerosis. This imbalance is not counteracted by endogenous antioxidants. And if we look at the antioxidant profile of BPF, which is the one in red, you can see here that is quite similar to the one of drugs which are currently claimed to be efficient in order to counteract oxidative stress, such as metalloporphyrin, and the comparison with vitamin E, for instance, which is the most famous of the antioxidant, is that BPF works at very, very low concentration and is a very powerful antioxidant, both in vitro and in vivo, under in vivo models. The other activity is the consequence of this antioxidant activity is the improvement of reactive vasodilatation and the natural consequence of impaired reactive vasodilatation, which is erectile dysfunction. More than 70% of subjects undergoing diabetes and metabolic syndrome undergo erectile dysfunction. And many studies have been carried out in order to verify which is the best approach, apart from the recent phosphodiesterase inhibitors. Many natural products have been checked for centuries in order to counteract this impairment. And we studied this effect in diabetic patients in which through the use of endopath methodology, we verified that a treatment with BPF, 2 tablets a day, 1,200 milligrams a day, are able to improve the erectile dysfunction, which is accompanying the diabetes. And this has been also shown in cardiac models. We have to remember that the effect of improvement of nitric oxide release is highly appreciated in subjects in which cardiac contractility is damaged. Here we use the model represented by administration of anti-cancer drugs which lead to cardiac dysfunction. And the other consequence of the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activity of this product is the impairment of hepatic function with the inflammation of the liver, which is accompanying and leads to NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And our data have been published recently in Scientific Reports of Nature, a very prestigious journal, in which we demonstrated that the bergamot polyphenolic fraction improves dyslipidemia, but also the pathophysiological features of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And in particular, we found that the tendency of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease to develop fibrosis and cancer is counteracted by the use of bergamot polyphenolic fraction, thus suggesting that inflammatory and antioxidant properties are the crucial one for the generalized benefits in subjects with metabolic syndrome. And finally, one of the focus of this presentation, which is represented by the sport activity in healthy aging. It is known that metabolic syndrome is accompanied by impairment also in the capacity of all subjects, obviously, to undergo physical activity, and mostly related to sarcopenia, but also to impairment of muscular function. And a few years ago, we published a paper in which we demonstrated that bergamot polyphenolic fraction in athletes is able to enhance the metabolic balance and to produce an increase in an improvement of endothelium function and maximal oxygen uptake in the subjects. This effect was mainly related to stimulation of the nitric oxide production, and you know that nitric oxide is the vascular mediator of vasodilation, but also improves heart function. And this free radical is destroyed by superoxide anions, and the antioxidant properties of bergamot polyphenolic fraction are able to reduce the amount of nitric oxide which is destroyed by oxidative stress. So under those conditions, we also evaluated the improvement of several components of the pathway which leads to enhanced contraction in the subjects, and this is a pathway which is identified as a raw pathway in muscle contraction. This pathway leads to a series of changes in intracellular transduction mechanisms which lead to an improvement in the capacity of contractile proteins to take up the calcium during contraction and then to generate much more force and tension in muscles. And this has been studied in both patients and rats, and you can see here that after this is normal, this is treadmill, and this is treadmill plus BPF. You can see that both RAC1, ROC2, RAW, and PMIT, which are the biomarkers of the improved muscular function, are enhanced by the treatment with BPF. And this effect was accompanied by an improvement in glucose tolerance and metabolic balance. This means that in older subjects, we have that together the metabolic syndrome and aging move in the direction of a reduction in muscular performance and sarcopenia. And this effect is counteracted by BPF. This is relevant not only under normal conditions, but also under conditions in which we have an impairment of muscular function related to use of statins or to the use of statin-like substances which are contained in several food supplements. Red yeast rice, it is known to be one of the most consistent nutraceutical supplements containing statins, lovastatin in particular, and maybe this product is is used currently in many countries and especially in Europe. And we evaluated in a comparative analysis, which has been very recently published in Nutrients, that the red yeast rice is containing a statin. And it is known that in Europe at the moment there is a very serious warning about the use of this product, since it's not a food supplement, but is a drug. And if we evaluate a comparative response when using BPF, we can see that we have a better response in terms of reduction of LDL cholesterol, but you have also a significant response in one of the major targets which today are studied all around the world, which is the expression of the protein PCSK9 in the liver and in the blood. You can see that the PCSK9 expression is enhanced by red yeast rice and is completely reduced by the co-administration of BPF, thus suggesting that this is one of the major targets of the antioxidant and of the protective response you can expect when using BPF. So in conclusion, lifestyle changes and natural antioxidant supplementation represent today one of the major treatments which we can expect, apart from drugs which produce side effects in subjects with metabolic syndrome and in elderly. The bergamot polyphenolic fraction has been studied and appears to be one of the major resources to produce direct antioxidant and anti-inflammatory responses in patients. And this is relevant since more than 12 studies have clearly demonstrated the efficacy and safety of this provide. And the combined effect on reducing serum cholesterol and triglyceride, improving endothelium function, and improving muscular performance represent today maybe one of the major objectives when approaching metabolic syndrome with food supplementation. Thank you for your attention. I think we have time for.
Unfortunately, we are at time, Professor. So, but you do have a booth number. I think it was H279. Was I reading that? Oh, K279. Okay. So, if you have questions, Professor Marachi will be there. Thank you so much. And our next session will start here in just about 2 minutes. Thank you.